man. Your show's gonna be awesome, bro. Your show's gonna be awesome.
Pete, Tanathapi, everyone. How's it going? This is your boy, Little Dog here. And today we have an amazing show. You know what? I forgot my hat and I just had it. That's okay. My hat's over there. But anyway, so we have an amazing show coming up for you guys. And I have an amazing actors of every industry who's been doing this for quite a while now. And so, you know, today's episode, we're just going to go over some we have Mr. Brian Spellman with us today, and he's going to go over his career, what he did before then, how he got started, as well as some of the tips that he's been giving out. He is online, pretty active online, showing new and upcoming artists, what to look for, a couple of red flags that come up with the acting industry, and so he's a great resource, great person to follow. Somebody who you definitely want to tune into his live whenever they come up or watch his videos. He also shares a lot of videos on his TikTok regarding, some of the projects that he's on. Seen a couple of dad jokes, which is great. I mean, can't go wrong with dad jokes. So, anyways, go into a couple of intro stuff before then. Let me get to my media assets. So first off, I do want to go ahead and thank all of my sponsors today, which first off, we're going to go ahead and thank Alpine Roofing and Solar for, everything that I do. I do a lot of roofing as well as a lot of solar in the industry for about, let's say, over 15, 16 years. I think 16 years was a few years ago. But anyways, I don't remember how long I've been in it, but I've been in it for a while, and so I know exactly what I'm doing. Give me a call. I'll be able to help you guys out. Most companies don't fight the insurance companies. They tell you no. A lot of them will just go with it and say no. However, not us, but we got a 98% win rate of risk denial. And so give us a call. A lot of times the insurance will just tell you no just to see who falls off and who's just going to give up. Our other sponsor that we have as well is Isaiah's Renovations. Does a lot of renovation work, interior, exterior, does some roofing, does some lawn care for these home renovations. There's just a few of the services as well as the contact number at the bottom left and email address. You get free estimates whenever you contact them. So thank you very much for sponsoring the show today. Uh, Upcoming, we have a powwow coming up. Now, this is actually going to be at the UTA at the Maverick, the Maverick building is what it's called. However, this is going to be an amazing event. So show up, come through, show some support. There's going to be local artists there, there's some drum groups as well as the stickball, the truck that stickball team. We're going to be there as well doing demonstrations on the soccer field that's inside there. So here's the one for the DFW TEWLD. Now, practices, we do have practices in Dallas and Fort Worth. The Fort Worth is a beginner's class, so if you're kind of new to it, don't know where to start, don't know sticks, pick them up, toss me, come through and check it out. Now, you will be contacting head coach Eli Hickman, who you can find on Facebook. He's going to go through and tell you guys the requirements of what it's going to take to become part of the group. All right, so moving on, we also have the Texas SBOE vote to renew the American Indigenous Native Studies. Now, remember, they did vote on this and they did approve it as an elective, which means that you will not get credits. You do not get credits for this. A lot of people believe that the indigenous, that were in the histories, that were only in the history books, lived in teepees, still live in teepees. I've actually got emails people wondering that. So we do not, and it also helps to bring identity to the children as well that go through these programs to connect with their roots and who they are and the indigenous people that have made the world around them, including science, technology. There's been a lot of advancements due to indigenous scientists, and we're not only in the history books. So going to go ahead and show some support for that. And with all of that, it's just these are just some of the things that I'm passionate about. As far as the school board of education goes, it's something that I've been working on. My old laptop had crashed. I'm still trying to recover those files. However, I do have a lot of files that I will be releasing pretty soon regarding some of that. So go ahead and keep an eye out for them. Go ahead and give them a follow as well. Now, as far as the other things go, that's all helps out. The roofing helps me out, helps keep the show on the let's get straight going. So anytime you guys do bring business, I will handle it to the very professional. That's as I do with all my clients, as well as all my clients too. Now I will make sure that we do take care of you professionally and make it as easy as possible. And like I said, we're one of the few that will fight the fight. Most companies will just say no and give up. There we go. Sorry about that. We're back. One thing about the iPad is that whenever I forget to put it on Do Not Contact, I also get calls to my iPad as well. That's kind of what happens. So, anyways, like I said, today's episode we have an amazing artist coming in, our actor, and he's a writer, director, and he's also a very funny guy. I've gotten to work with him pretty recently. I followed him on Facebook before then, and he's just a really great guy. I knew that was somebody that I wanted to work with, and very happy to have you in today. So check out this little this video right here, kind of with his little bit of his work, and we'll be right back with Brian.
Please try and keep this out of the media at least for 24 hours.
I can't make any promises. They're out of my control.
I hope it's not a match.
Please don't start this shit.
That's why I want to make sure it's right.
It's right. We've got motive, no alibi, witness statements of the fight, and no one testifying they actually saw her leave.
Just maybe she didn't do it.
The feds, the DA, the local PD, and the state are going to be digging up all sorts of shit. And our names are all over the judge's dirty work in cases. If he's exposed, we're done.
Damn!
For now, she did this shit.
It's only been a week. How the hell have they already opened up Nasir Spencer's case? I'll take care of Jasmine.
Look, it's protocol that we come out, but we wanted to come personally because if this is something that maybe we can help with, we want to help.
The judge would do the same for my wife.
You just said he was dead. That means we can pin everything on him.
All right, we're back. Hey, Brian, how you going, man?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I just saw so many things that I don't like about my acting that we're gonna have to change. But other than that, that was good. Yeah.
It's always about improving, right? And so let me go ahead and move this over a little bit. There we go. We're always improving, always getting better, right? That's kind of the goal of being in the industry and working on your craft, right? So, anyways, go ahead and introduce yourself to our crowd here, and let them know, of course, who you are, what you did before this, and how you got into acting.
Okay. Hey, I'm Brian Spellman. I am 6'3". Oh wait, not a slate. Oh.
That works too.
But yeah, I'm Brian, and let's see. I have had a career in more or less the corporate world, doing project management, helping engineers with figuring out how to use product lifecycle management software, and that kind of stuff. And I also basically accidentally became an actor back when the world shut down. By the way, remember how like the year 2020 and the year 2 years later, it almost felt like it was all the same, right? Like all that was just the same chunk, those 2 years of time. That's because 2 years after 2020 was, in fact, 2022. TLO. Okay, so I tell a lot of terrible jokes.
No,
Yeah. In fact, if you've hung out with me for any amount of time, I will tell terrible or great, depending on how you view jokes. But yeah. So I got into improv comedy as we were getting out of that whole like quarantine thing. I took some classes over at an amazing place called 4-Day Weekend. If you have never seen that show, go see that show. It's like, whose line is it anyway? Saturday Night Live having an illegitimate child, that is their show. There's one, I think it's somewhere, there's one in Fort Worth they've been doing 25 plus years. They just got a new venue in Fort Worth, and they're also in Dallas, in Lower Greenville. But yeah, so I learned improv from those guys. And that would just open up a whole new world where I was like, wow, improv is super fun. At that point, still wasn't really thinking about becoming an actor. I was just, improv's great. I got into doing dinner detective murder mystery shows, which are basically improv shows with a loose script while people are having dinner, and you get to just interview audience members and roast them. So that was fun. Went to an event over at 4-Day where I accidentally won a grant to make a short film. So I was like, I guess I'm going to go film a short film. And my actor got sick before we filmed. Thanks, Paul. And I was like, well, I still have everything else booked. I got locations. I got, a guy behind the camera. So I guess I'm going to act now. So I did that whole thing. And the whole film was just a big knock joke too, just FYI. But I just fell in love with it. Came back and from filming that, edited it together and was like, what can I do acting? Found a background casting call for it ended up being this show that was on the Angel Network, I think it was. And met somebody there who ended up giving me an audition for my first real role, speaking role, and also started doing background work on The Chosen, which was an amazing experience. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So I think I just looked it up because you told me you were going to ask how long I've been acting. My first day on set with spoken lines was August of 2022. So that's kind of where it all really began, and just went uphill or downhill depending on your viewpoint from there.
Hey, that's pretty awesome. A lot of things that I've noticed is that a lot of people who've been in acting a bit longer and had a bit more success just kind of fell into it, basically.
I think there's a lot of life experience that goes into being able, one of the best things I ever learned and heard was that acting is just being yourself under an imaginary set of circumstances. And so you have to have some life circumstances to be able to figure out what you are in a film or in a role. And a lot of that comes too from, there's some things I haven't experienced, but I can imagine what they're like because of the other things that I have experienced. So, if you see young kids who are acting who haven't had life experience yet, it's really impressive because you're like, you're making this super believable, and you haven't even lived anything close to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they have, maybe their life's just yeah. But I think that experience goes a long way because you have to be real. Like, you have to not believe that you have become this person necessarily, because that can be dangerous in certain roles, but you still have to believe that when the camera, when you hear, action, you are now feeling what your character needs to feel, and that's how it becomes believable.
That's actually really good. That's, me being as unexperienced as I am, that's kind of how I kind of viewed it as well too. Was that there were a couple of roles where I felt like I thought about how would I have handled this situation if I was in those shoes. And so it's pretty cool to say that, because like I said, I'm very inexperienced. I'm pretty new to it, just within the last 3 years, and more or less my speaking roles really within the last one. So, I do watch your videos a lot. You do give a lot of really good tips too. And I noticed that whenever you're on the casting Facebook ones, you're always putting in, hey, watch out for this, or you're asking different questions.
Okay, hi. I'm going to go on, what do you call that? Soapbox for a second here. Not Apple Box, but soapbox. If you're going to post a casting call, post the needed information. Where are you filming? When are you filming? Are you paying? I mean, these are things people want to know before they're like, let's go. And then, okay, so it's actually pretty easy for anybody to say, I'm a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. All you got to do is go buy a camera. You're a filmmaker. But that doesn't mean that you're a filmmaker. Does that make sense, right? Yeah. So, and don't get me wrong, I have no problem with projects that are unpaid if they're not basically taking advantage of the actor. But there's so many situations where they're like, we have distribution on Netflix or Tubi or whatever, which tells me you have distribution, you're going to make some money.
Mm-hmm.
And then expecting people to work for free irks me just a little bit.
That makes sense too, because it's like, why take advantage of people? It's, I kind of came across a couple of filmmakers as well, where it was unpaid, but they released it out and, they're bringing in revenue, ad revenue and everything else. And it's like, why can't you pay,
Right.
at least something? Because I'm basically paying to be on your show.
Yep. And because you're giving up your time. But not only that, in order to be able to act, you've got to put in time, just like anything else, studying to be a better actor. I mean, I've taken a lot of classes, and those have helped tremendously as far as learning how to become a character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a learned skill. There's part of it that is taught. There's part of it that's just instinct and natural. But for most humans, unless you're just a superhuman who happen to have the powers to just instinctually be the best actor ever, there are classes that are taken, and classes are not cheap. Like good ones are not inexpensive. So I do get pretty upset, and if you've seen me post on Facebook, you've seen this, where people are like, yeah, come be in our show, but they're unpaid. Great, but we're going to make money off of you. Okay, not great. Now you're just using people, and there are so many scams too. You got to be careful for.
Oh yeah, I've come across some of those, and some of them have emailed me too, and it's like, oh, we're gonna send you this money beforehand. Just make sure that you take up for this, and then give us the money back. And it's like,
you know how that works, right? So what they do is they offer you a check that is for far more than they're going to pay you. The check has to be mailed to you. And when it's mailed to you, it is from somebody that's not them, because it's actually a fraudulent check. You go to your bank, you cash it. You're like, cool, I got this money. I got $5,000. They want you to go give $2,500 to their outfit or costume person or whatever. You do that. They have cash. Your bank then comes back to you and says, hey, that was a fraudulent check, so you need to pay us back. And now you can't because you're out of the money. That's how that scam works. So if you are offered money in advance for a role, awesome. If that involves cashing a check physically, could be okay. But if they then tell you to take that money and pay it to somebody else, that's definitely a scam. Don't do it.
Oh, yeah. And I come across a lot of those, and they email me, and I'm just like, yeah, that's totally a scam. I'm not doing that.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
There you go. Because I know that a lot of actors tend to be a little bit hungry, especially when they're first beginning, they're struggling a little bit. Some people think, hey, I'm going to get into acting, and this is going to support me right away.
No. Unless you just happen to fall into that perfect, crazy stream of circumstances, it's not going to support you right away. And most actors do not make acting their full-time job. It just isn't there. And of course, with the way the world is now, with both the emergence of all this AI stuff, as well as, social media changed it too. Streaming changed it. It feels like in most cases, the dream of being a superstar actor, like an A-list actor, is getting smaller and smaller. Fewer and fewer people are ever going to achieve that, unless everything changes with the way the world's working.
Really, I've seen is it seems like whenever an actor passes, another actor who looks similar to them kind of steps into their place a little bit.
Are there any bearded, bald head actors that are passing soon?
Sean Connery.
I don't have that accent though.
Okay. Well, close enough.
not even a little bit. We went morbid there. Sorry, y'all.
Sorry about that. Off the topic. Sean Connery's alive.
I should know that. So,
sorry about that.
Scams, avoid scams. Also, and this is big. So, I took an acting class for 2 years from Sally Allen and Tony Brock from Brock Allen Casting, which they cast a lot of stuff in Texas and elsewhere. But they started an acting class. They're limited to 10 people each 2-year period, and they want to basically. They noticed that actors were having a really hard time with self-tapes.
Mm-hmm.
That doing a self-tape audition is a different skill in a lot of ways than acting on a set.
Yeah.
And which kind of sucks. You have to learn this skill to get the parts, and then you do this skill to do the parts. But they have a great class where they talk about preparing for those sides, because if you've got, I mean, I've got an audition I got to go do after this. It's a page and a half, and I've got to figure out from that page and a half what's really happening in the whole story. How does my character move it along? What can I do to make a choice to be different, but in a good way that makes sense and doesn't just be like, oh, look, he's different. There's so much that goes into it. But I took that class, and they were, I mean, fantastic to help kind of move me from that idea of I'm trying to be an actor to I feel like I'm more confident in actually making these choices. What was I going to say with this point? Classes are great, but you should take them. That's good. What did you ask right before I started saying that? Something about, oh, we're talking about scams. And yeah, scams. And so I started because of all of these come work for free unpaid. I made a post on Facebook, which was, look, I'm making a movie. That film, it's a short film. It's this great, heartwarming story about this young couple who comes and takes their time to spend a whole day helping an older couple with their lawn. They're going to mow it, do the gardening, all this kind of stuff. Great story. It's going to film all in MOS, no sound, just B-roll the whole time to tell the story. Bring your own lawnmower. At that point, I figured people would realize unpaid, you're going to have us working in a yard for 8 hours, bring your own lawnmower. It was a joke. I had 11 people email me trying to come audition for this. Okay, so that happened. I was like, great. People, I know you're hungry, but value yourself. So I reached out to Sally, and I'm like, Sally, she's also upset with people taking advantage of people, and she's all about valuing yourself and everything. And so I'd finished the 2 years with them, and I'm like, Sally, let's make a podcast about this. So we've done 2 episodes so far, and it's called Act Like It's a Business. The idea is exactly that, because it's a pun too, because I like dad jokes. But you've got to treat acting like a business. Don't let yourself be taken advantage of. You like value your time, value yourself. And if you are on set and you are asked to do something that you're not comfortable with, and that something wasn't what you were told before, like you didn't already agree to it, you have the right to not do that. There's pressure, and you can read about this in both independent films a lot, but also in Hollywood films about the pressure to do certain things. But if you've got a line, don't cross it due to pressure, because then you're going to regret it later, right? Yeah. Like, value yourself. If you're watching this now or later, this is true in everything of life, but respect yourself, value yourself. Whatever you stand for, that makes you you, and don't compromise.
Yeah, that's actually some really good advice, because that is definitely something that I see a lot of people compromising on. I mean, just even for a little bit, I actually consider that too. I'm just like, wait, I don't want to do that. And I was like, that doesn't seem like me, even though I got picked for it. I'm like, that just doesn't, I don't think I can make that work. Now, me personally, I like the self-tape auditions a little bit more. Oh, yeah. I feel a lot more comfortable doing those and versus a live one, just because, I don't know, I get a little anxiety whenever I have a lot of people there, kind of staring at me. And I'm just like, I don't mind doing it on set. I do quite well. It's just whenever I get it right there, and for me, kind of, what do you do in those kind of situations?
So I learned, and Kirk, I've taken lessons from Kirk Waller, who is Gaius on The Chosen, and he said several times that you're basically the most vulnerable ever when you're on camera, because if the camera picks up everything, like it gets some of the best acting is if you're feeling something and you're trying to hide it, the camera picks that up, and it's like, what is going on? It sucks people in. And you can see that with actors. You're like, wow. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, you're like, what is going on in that man's head? And it's just, it's rich. There's thoughts behind it, right? So you've got to be able to be vulnerable and open. What you're showing to a camera, it feels different. Like right now we're talking, where you and me, you seem pretty comfortable and fine just talking, because this is your elements, right? But you've got to take that same thing and be that same level of comfort when you're on camera. And it's weird, because you've got to be able to know that there's a camera so that you have the right, frame, the right looking at it, whatever, the right blocking. But then you have to forget that there's a camera and just be you. So There's a book called The Power of the Actor by Ivana Chubbuck. Ivana has taught, the list of her clients includes Brad Pitt, Halle Berry. She helped Halle with Monsters Ball. So many names. And there's a book and you can get this book for $30 audiobook where she's reading herself on Amazon. On Audible, or you can also buy the book. And that book has been such a tremendous help. So I think kind of my journey is learning acting. It's been through, but I've looked at Meisner, did that with Kirk, went in, did the mostly Stanislavski based when we're working with Tony and Sally. And then once I started working with the Ivana Chubbuck studio, which is what that book is, Power of the Actor, it kind of took all those other things in my brain, because my brain's more like logical math. Like I like structures and formula. Yeah. And it really helped to solidify that in a way that you basically outline, you prepare, you do all your work, in-depth script analysis, in-depth, like, why am I saying this? What does this mean to me? What are the thoughts I'm having as a result? You make it real. And then you get on set and you might have done, 30 hours of work for this one 2-minute scene. And then the scene starts and you take everything you just did, you throw it out. You don't think about it. You don't focus on it. You just exist in the scene and trust that it's going to work. And that's what I've learned from all these people I mentioned, from Kirk, from Sally, from Tony, from Sharita with Ivana's studio. Like all of those, you do the prep work and then you throw it away. And that's why when you're doing a self-tape, you'll hear a lot of times they're like, you know what? Do one take that you think they want to see. Do one take that's a different choice. And do one take that you're not going to show because it's just crazy silly. And that's probably the best one.
Yep, that's true. Because I've looked at some of them, I'll do like multiple takes, and then I'll be like, you know what? I didn't think I was going to do this one, but that one looks like it's the best one.
And the reason is because you aren't thinking. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned from improv. Was like improv is all yes and. Like we walk into a scene doing improv. If you're going to be an actor, go take improv classes. But you walk onto a scene and you don't know what it is. You got an audience suggestion. And usually your scene partner is going to tell you who you are and you tell them who they are. And you just go with it. Like, the scene is we're supposed to launch a rocket to the moon and go pick up some mushrooms on the moon. That's what the audience gave us, right? And I'm going to walk up and be like, all right, cuz, you ready to start this? And you have to not be like, I'm not your cousin. You have to completely be like, yes, and then how you build on that. And then you would tell me who I am. And then we'll ask like, I might say something ridiculous like, well, we got to go to the moon, but, did you have your V8 juice today? Like whatever you think of, you say it. And you go back and forth. You make a scene, you make it real. All you're trying to do is to make that real in that moment. And what that does is it lets you be creative, but also lets you get over I'm trying to do this wall and guard what's happening. It opens you up. That exercise opens you up and then lets you create a world, which is what you also have to do in the imaginary world of a script. You do those same things. Like if you're supposed to be a CIA agent where you're recruiting a new assassin, let's say, in order to build that character, Calvin, I'm wearing your coat. In order to build that character, you've got to create more than what's just on the script. Mm-hmm. You're going to ask yourself, like, how long have I done this? Do I like doing this? Am I trying to save the world or am I trying to get a paycheck? Like you come up with all of these things that make it real for you. And then you say, okay, that's true. And if that's true, what else is true? And if that's true, what else is true? Mm-hmm. Now you have a character.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And, a lot of my speaker roles that I've been getting, I've had very few that were actually fully scripted. Some of them were, hey, this is the scene, mm-hmm. Work with this guy. And so I was over there and I remember I did like the American Community. That was basically what it was this is the scene that we're going to be. This is you. I thought I was going to die. Things changed last minute. And so
thought I was going to die, but I lived.
Exactly. But then I survived. No. But anyways.
And came back with a sequel.
Exactly. But that whole scene changed up last minute. And so I worked with it, and I took a hit, I didn't get actually hit, I was able to move and stuff. But anyways, Stoneways. I got hit in the face and everything, and everybody just loved the way it turned out. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. For me, a lot of my stuff comes from sales. I've been in sales a long time, and sales.
So what you just said is you are basically an improv actor, because if you, I mean, people say, how long have you been acting? And my answer is since I was born. Like every time you meet somebody, you give a different face to them. When you go to sell a new client versus someone who you've known for a while, versus talking to a friend, versus sitting here doing a podcast, versus interview for a corporate job. Every one of those, you are acting like a different version of you.
Exactly.
Subconsciously maybe, but because we present different faces to different people, right? The same thing.
And that's actually one of my main points right here, because a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe I should give acting a shot, but I don't know if I can. I don't have any experience. It's like, look, you've been doing it all your life. And so that's why I asked, what's your background? So that way people are like, well, I don't have a background in theater. I don't have a background in, high school theater or anything like that. Well, you don't need to. You've interacted with different people different ways. It's just figuring out, hey, how can I make this to where if I was in their shoes? And that's a lot of what sales is. Sales is a lot of emotional sales. And so I have a set script that, we do to follow.
How do you manipulate you?
I'm what you call a soft closer.
Okay.
I lead them to the yes.
So he manipulates.
I show them the truth. And then I'm like, this is what I'm going to do. And if they like it, cool. My whole thing is, if this is your house, your investment, do you want to take care of it? Yes. Okay, well, I'm here to help you out with that. No? Well, that's still your decision. I'm here if you need me.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of a take it or leave it kind of thing, But I have been in sales for a long time. I did do car sales. Not car sales. There's a lot of manipulation.
High pressure manipulation. Yep. There's a reason why they have sold you a lemon as a phrase.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've actually got really good at car sales and soft closing. And so I have a whole bunch of different theories on sales, colors that you wear, the way that you talk, tones that you do.
Do you have theories on the colors that you wear for a self-tape?
Yes, that's what I do too. I think that's it just depends on the character. So like if it's something that's a little bit more I have been known to wear red and self-tape as an aggressive, form of, character. And so I'll use that to kind of amplify my sense of anger, or like if I'm like a leader or something like that, I'll wear my suit, which I have my coat right here, and I have my red right here and my red tie, and I'll wear that as a symbol of power. Or like if they're a little bit softer, kind of a nicer person, I'll wear blue.
I don't play those.
So I tend to be, well, here's the funny thing is I get a lot of kind of hero or, I get kidnapped or I'm a fighter. The other one that I finally got was actually a villain audition, which is a bit different for me, but I've kind of been interested in trying it out as well too.
So on that note, let's say you are playing a villain or somebody who, in general, you as Little Dog would say that is a bad person, right? But the person who is a bad person, they don't believe they are a bad person. They might believe they are doing bad things, but they don't believe they're a bad person.
Ultimately, they're doing the greater good.
And that's what you've got to do with like when you become, so for example, like I have played a role as a kidnapper or as a killer. Now, Brian Spellman is not going to go kidnap or kill somebody. I could not do that. But for a script, if I can come up with a reason why I'm in this imaginary situation where I could have seen life circumstances that drew me to that spot, well, now it's believable. And that's what makes characters so interesting. Like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
That's an iconic character. And that's a bad character, right? He was only on film for 7 minutes out of the entire movie. And that's what you remember.
Yeah.
But what he kind of made it about wasn't about killing people or eating them, spoiler, but it was mostly about finding a connection with another human, which is what he did at the end, right? Like with Jodie Foster. Like that connection is, and you watch it and you're like, there is a connection, and that's what makes it fascinating. They took human element to this awful story, like awful things things happening, and made it. That's what you got to do. Like,
Sure.
and that's what makes things so dynamic and interesting. And when you get the audience feeling for the bad guy, then you're like, oh, okay. One of the most interesting things I've heard from studying the Chubbuck technique, if your character is going to die, you know this, like your character may not know, but you as the actor know, you've got to make that character earn the right to die.
Mm. Yeah.
So that when it happens, the audience is like, oh, maybe I didn't see it coming, but now I see why. Like, you know, and it could be a tragic death, it could be whatever, but you've got to like earn that right.
Mm-hmm.
Which sounds crazy, but the more you think about it, the more it makes sense in an acting role. Yeah.
That actually does make a lot of sense. And so, uh, you know, I was actually really nervous on how I was doing. Now, what is your take on? I know some people show up in character already. I've kind of seen some of your jokes where you've done a dad joke in the middle of filming, and so.
Okay, asking me for self-tape audition advice may or may not be a good idea. I have literally done things like start spinning a lightsaber in the middle of an audition. Yeah. I did get I made it to the last two in that audition, by the way. So like yeah, and there was no lightsaber needed in the audition. Usually if I'm doing like a slate where if it's a character where I'm supposed to be a dad, I will usually throw in a dad joke. Now, whether that's good, I don't know. It probably depends a lot on the casting director, who they are. But I'm kind of I learned I need to be more me and less what I think they want to see. Which is what so many of the famous roles that you go and listen to or see, when they were casting it, they weren't going for that person. But then what they did was that person went on a limb, did something that was all of them. They brought themselves to that role, and the casting directors are like, we need that. One of my favorite stories is, now have you seen Cheers? Are you old enough to have ever seen Cheers? Now, what are the characters you remember from Cheers?
It's been such a long time, but I don't.
So there's one character who we know is at the bar and has a huge bar tab and drinks all the time.
Yes.
There's one guy who's the know-it-all at the postman know-it-all, right? He auditioned for it, and he bombed his audition. He knew he bombed it and wasn't going to be in there for a different character. He leaves, turns around, and says, "Wait a second, do you guys have a know-it-all yet?" And they're like, "What?" It's like, if it's a bar, you need the character who's going to be the one who knows it all. And he basically told them the character they needed. And then they made that character and put him as one of the most iconic roles of that show. So just be yourself. But going out on a limb is not always going to work. But when it does work, it really works.
For sure. And there's been a couple of times where I've applied to casting calls and the description didn't fit me.
Mm-hmm.
But then I still got it. Like there's one where the last name was German. I'm obviously not German, but I still got the role and they just cut out the last name.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one where I did an audition and they came back and said, "You don't match that character, but I'm going to write you a character in." And I was like, "Hey, that's pretty cool. I appreciate it." And so
I once auditioned for a role that was listed as a 50-year-old black man. I got the role. Spoiler alert, I'm neither of those things.
So you never know what you get whenever you apply.
It's
a lot of times they don't know what they're looking for.
Especially with commercials.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they're looking for. And commercial auditions are great or incredibly annoying depending on what's happening. But a lot of times, like that's what they want to see what's believable in you, and then fits the mold of what they think needs to happen. Like those are a lot about looks, about they need the right ethnicity, look, height, gendered, whatever, but also they need what makes you stand out to sell the product, right? So yeah, I guess it's just be yourself is the end result. And this part, I hate this part about the business, but it also makes sense. And it was, you probably heard Bryan Cranston say this, was his career started being successful when he started thinking about the audition as the job, not the role as the job.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
That's actually very smart too, because, a lot of people think, well, I've heard some people say, well, I've heard the audition doesn't matter too much, or some people take it way too super serious, and then they kind of psych themselves out about it. And so that's actually it's very good advice with this.
So crash course in self-tapes. We get them, we have to do them. There's very few in the roles that we're auditioning for now. There's very few go in person and audition. It's all submit your self-tape first, maybe then get a live callback. So you are given a page and a half to audition. It's part of a 117-page script. You don't get to see the script. You get a 30-word character breakdown, if that. And you've got to make an audition that's going to have the people who know the script and know the character decide you're right for the character. How do you do it? So, and this is a lot of what, because I said Sally and Tony were trying to make a good class in the 2 years of how to do this. But a couple things to think about are, why does your character exist? What is the overall purpose of the film, and how does your scene and your character move that along? So you're in the film not to be you saying these lines, so not just memorizing and saying them. You're in the film to move the plot along. So how does that happen? So you got to realize that. You got to figure out what is the overall goal message for the whole film, especially for your character. So if your character is in a day player, well, their goal for the whole film is basically to move the plot along and to help the main characters get to that point. If you're a main or a supporting character, you can really figure out what's your overall goal. Like, I am in this scenario to find true love. I'm in this scenario to get my power back, and these are all listed in Ivana's book. A lot of these kind of things for ideas. So once you figure that out, and that's a lot of work. I haven't even memorized lines yet. I haven't even done anything. I've done all this first, right? Then you look at the scene you are in. What is my scene objective? How does that match the overall? Great, cool. Okay, now I got a scene objective, which might be, I need to get you to like me. It might be, I want you to fall in love with me. I need to get you to help me repair my car, like whatever it is, right? Because in any conversation you have with real humans, you've got something happening that you are trying to get out of that. Like, it happens, you're trying to have a good interaction, maybe, not get into a fist fight. You're trying to deal with, you're the mother of your kids who you're no longer with, and trying to have that be cordial and not break out in a fight. Or you're just walking down the street and you are trying to make someone's day by telling them hi, right? But whatever it is, you've got an interaction you're trying to make. Well, once you know what your objective is, now you do your work on the scene. But now you know why you're saying what you're saying. Now you know the subtext behind what you're saying. And when I say hi, I'm not just saying hi. I'm trying to get your attention, or I'm trying to make you like me, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And then everything happens so that when somebody responds, now what you say is a direct result of responding to what they just said or what you started saying before. Well, now you don't have to memorize the lines as much, because you've memorized you've figured out my objective, and then the words happen as a result. And then you've got your emotions underneath that you may be trying to hide or may not be. And now when you do the scene, it's going to feel real. So don't just take them, read, go. I mean, you don't have a lot of time. You've got 24 hours to take the sides and record the audition.
Do you have an agent at the moment, or do you just self-represent?
Both. I have an agent, and they give me a lot of commercial auditions, and then I've gotten some auditions for like the Ethan Hawke's Lowdown, a couple for some of the Taylor Sheridan stuff, day player roles or co-star roles. But I haven't, the ones I've gotten as far as independent films have mostly just been through finding people, networking, Facebook, etc.
Yeah, that's kind of the same way that I do as well. So I tell people, whenever I get on these major sets, I bounce around. I tell everybody. Mm-hmm. I tell them, but when I'm professional, I'm professional. I follow the scene. I don't, stand out or try to make myself more noticeable. Actually, more recently, I've been trying to make myself less noticeable, which is kind of difficult for me, to be honest. Because I'll be like trying to stand in the back. Next thing you know, I'm watching the episode, and my face is all over it. I'm like, okay, they caught me.
So you never know who you're going. Like, first off, be nice to everybody because they're humans. But also, if you're on set, you might meet a PA who their goal is to go from PA to AD to director, producer, right? Most people move their way up, just like actors do, crew does too. So treat the crew nice, treat your fellow actors nice. You never know what's going to happen. In January, I filmed The Hive, which is a psychological thriller, amazing script, and I play a PTSD anger issue FBI agent who comes in and tries to solve the unsolvable crimes. And the way I got that was I was on set as a day player, as a detective in a film. One of the other guys who I was talking to in the green room had just decided he wanted to start writing stuff. And Sean did that. And as he's writing the character, he kept seeing me. And so when the script was like, by the time he was through like the fourth revision of the script, I was already the lead character. And maybe even before then. And so, because he just could see me as that character, which is also cool because then the character is kind of written with you in mind, which just helps. But that character, like the culmination of all the stuff I have done so far, pretty much culminated in what happened on that set. And I just posted this today, the teaser trailer for The Hive, but it culminated in like, there was a moment. He's like, okay, so for this scene, no spoilers, but for this scene, you're seeing something that's going to make you really sad, so cry. And then in a few seconds, you're going to realize that's not true, so stop crying. And then react appropriately to what's happening, which is pretty much getting really mad. Go. I'm like, that doesn't, wait, what? Start, cry, stop, cry, get mad. Okay. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. He's like, well, just do what you can. So we started. I don't know how long it actually took, but I did about 15 minutes of prep work to get into the right mindset. Mm-hmm. And we started filming. It was just me basically staring almost straight into this camera right here. And I didn't cry, but I ended up trying not to cry because I was going to cry. And all these emotions happened. So within the span of a minute, I went from super sad and devastated to relieved to incredibly mad. And then he said, cut. And I'm like, oh, what happened? Like, we're good. And there was silence. And then I heard people crying in the crew. And I'm like, okay, I just did something real. Like, and I looked over at Sean, and tears are streaming from his eyes. We did one more take, and then that was it. And then I sat down, and then I ugly cried, because I had hit so many emotions there. And it was that moment where I'm like, okay, I am an actor. Like, that's what made me feel that way. And it was like an insane experience. And then filming for those days straight, it was right around the holidays, it was like 9 days straight, was also like, okay, I am an actor. Like, this is life. So be in touch with real feelings, even though I knew that the circumstances weren't real, because I knew I don't want to spoil it, but I knew that, there weren't real people that were making me have these reactions. Yeah. But our brains don't always know that, like, you can get these emotions from imaginary circumstances. Yeah. And it's crazy. Like, it's like those feelings, yes, I was acting for camera, but those feelings were real. So
now, what is your take on method acting? There was one where I know that a couple of people have different opinions on that, such as, some people are very strong on method acting. Some people really aren't. Some people are like, well, if you're insecure about your acting, you kind of show up in character already, and character all the way until it cut. What is your take on it?
I think it depends. So, like, learning about a character and being able, I know there's some actors who are going to do some sort of, like, I want to go actually be that job for a while to understand how it is. That can make sense because it helps you, make that real. But there's a line where I think at some point method acting is also kind of dangerous psychologically. If you're putting yourself, if you're going to play a addicted to drugs character, actually getting addicted to drugs may not be a good idea. If you're putting yourself in emotional states that are going to take you a long time to get out of and cause some problems. Like, I know one guy I was talking to had a like put himself in a state, cried, it was great, but he had relived something that for the next like 3-4 days he was still suffering from reliving that trauma. So I don't like the idea of reliving traumatic experiences. Personally, like I don't want to do that, but you can still use the memories of these things to help with making the imaginary part real, right? Like, you know, if we have been like, you know, best friends for life, and as a character, as characters, and you're on your deathbed and you're about to die, I can make it real to me that it is my best friend for life who is about to die and have these emotions. I don't have to do, I'm now remembering when my actual best friend was on his deathbed and I'm reliving all those things, right?
Yeah.
So like I think there's a difference in making these imaginary circumstances real to you in that moment versus making them real to you in your life. So I guess my answer is be careful, guard yourself. Um, and that I think that's also something that is for spiritually too. Like the acting is a very physical thing, but it's a very emotional in your mind thing. Like the only role I've ever turned down was one where my character was supposed to be somebody who was like saying this prayer to Satan and doing a bunch of like summoning stuff.
Yeah.
To me, that was just I didn't even want to pretend that, right? And so I was just like, to me that felt like danger zone.
Yeah, definitely. That goes for, you know, what you said earlier. You don't have to take every role that comes towards you. So that's, you know, of course, you showing that you give your own advice that you're telling everybody else. So in case you guys are wondering, he does.
It's like, look up the story of Denzel and the first role he was offered. The first role he was really offered, he tells the story, was in a room full of Jewish filmmakers. It was a film where they were going to lynch him and it was going to be a comedy. And he turned it down after a lot of talking with his agent and stuff. And then the next role he got was Glory, and that was great, right? But go like YouTube, look up that interview where he talks about it, and you'll understand how important it is to have the values you want and realize, you know, like if you're in a film, for me, it's does this have a message that I also want to get out? Like, do I kind of agree with why this film is being made? Because if there's a message that I'm liking and I think the film is a good idea, I can play a bad character in the film, still making all that kind of stuff happen, right? So but yeah, you've got to figure out where your own lines are and what's important to you, and that's an individual thing.
The reason I asked it because I know that for me, still being as a new one, I tend to kind of fall into a little bit more of showing up in character because it helps me to maintain that kind of mindset. And so, like recently, I did Anderson County, and you know, when I got on set, I found out, you know, there was a trauma, and then there was another trauma that was added on while I was standing there. So I was like, okay, so now I got to add another layer.
Yep.
And so whenever I was standing there and I was doing my hair and makeup, and everybody knows me, I'm a very positive person. I like to smile. I greet everybody, say hi, and everything. But I was very stoic and serious. I was kind of a day before I kind of started preparing myself and speaking in a certain way for my character. And I was kind of coming out of it and going back into it. But whenever I showed up on set, I was kind of like that too. Where the makeup artist, she was like, "Little dog was angry. I think he was just mad. He didn't smile. He didn't say hi to me. He didn't give me a hug." And Chris came up and goes, "You're in character, weren't you?" I was like, "Yeah, I was already in character."
Well, you've had Calvin on the show, who was the one who wrote and produced Cobra Diary of an Assassin. And he was telling me, like, after the weekend of filming, we're all at the ranch doing a bunch of filming. And he later told me, he's like, I thought you were mad at me. I thought you were pissed off and upset. And he's like, I realized later it's because you were in that character. And it does take you know, from the high too. Like there were times I would tell the first AD, I'm like, John, before we film this scene, give me a 15-minute warning. Because I needed to go and get myself with those layers you're talking about. So that doesn't mean I showed up to set in character for that, but I knew I needed to have time to get where I needed to be for the emotional states. But that's because of the prep work I did before. But I mean, for that film, it worked because like I was like, I told you I made that post today about, basically the agent Robert Jenkins was me as him in that imaginary circumstance. It's like we kind of basically became each other, right?
Yeah.
So like the thoughts I was having in the film, I have a daughter. Well, I was a dad in the film. I'm not a dad in real life, but I could feel, like I am like, why are you bringing that to school? That's a terrible lunch. Or, I'm going to make you laugh and torture you with dad jokes, which I do anyway. Or what, I'm worried about your dating life. So, were you really out studying last night? Those kind of things, right? And then one of the guys from set, one of the crew, Lance, posted, he's like, well, it worked because you are Agent Jenkins to me now. Like, that is just you. In fact, so much so that he saw me in a little clip I posted from The Creep 2, where I play a guy who's like, I'm basically an abusive boyfriend. And his response was, Jenkins, what's wrong with you? Like, so yeah, you can, if you make it real for camera, at some points, especially as you're close to when you're actually filming, when between action and cut, like it's also real on either side of that. On set with Kirk on The Chosen, Kirk was basically in character from when he showed up the whole day. Whereas like Brandon Potter, as soon as they said cut, he could make jokes and pop right out of character. And it just depends on you and your methods. I think that's for every person what works best for you. And I think for me, I tend to cope with trauma or difficult situations by making jokes, which also makes it much easier to switch in and out of serious joke.
Yeah.
But that's not everybody, right? And that's just the way you are for however long you've lived on this earth. Still be you.
That makes sense. I do a lot of jokes and serious as well. It's just I felt like at the time I was like maybe I should do that because it's kind of a little bit more of a bigger role for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I was like I was getting kind of nervous, and so it kind of helped me to be less nervous.
If you become the character, you don't have to be nervous because you are the character.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, in a in-person audition, showing up in character could help though, because instead of walking up and be like, hey, I'm Brian, I'm 6'3" from Grand Prairie, Texas, blah blah blah. If I walk in and do my slate, still my name, but I have the persona of the character I'm auditioning for, these people who've never met me can see that, like, oh, he just walked in and he is whatever.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they don't need to know you as a person. They need to know, are you able to become this character?
That's great advice right there. That'll definitely help out, I guess, for my next in person. Because whenever I know my last in person audition, I bombed it horribly. It was like for Michael Green, and I showed up to one of his auditions, and Narita was there and all that, and so I did my audition in front of him, but I know I bombed it because I kept messing up, and I was like, dang, I couldn't switch between me and the character, and me was getting nervous, and I had all these people staring at me, and the camera was on me, and I was like, for me, I was just. And so I kept messing up, and I was like, dang, I know I bombed that when I walked out.
Even if they know you, you can still walk up and be, I mean, these are people who you've probably seen before, or they may have seen you on social media and know how you are. But if you want them to believe that you are the character you're auditioning for, just walk in the room, do your slate, be that character. Why not? I mean, they don't need to see you and then that. Potential caveat is for commercial auditions, sometimes when they have like they want to see this personal thing about you, besides this, what do you do for fun, blah blah blah, they are trying to get to know you as a person too, but usually all they want to know is, can you be this character? And then in addition to that, there's the like, is this someone we think we could actually work with and because when you're on set, especially for a long time, you want people who you're not going to want to punch. You need.
I know a couple of guys that.
I've never been on set with someone I wanted to punch. No.
In fact, during season 1, there was a little conflict that went on between them, so much so that one of them said, "Well, fine, just remove my segment altogether." And so, because he was trying to dictate what thing I had on my show, and the following guy was like, "Well, I don't have any problem with that. It's a show." I was like, "Hey, it's just business, it's a show." you can't tell me exactly what to do. And he's like, well, fine, I don't want to support your show. Take me off. I was like, all right. He said, if you don't want to have him not as a guest, then remove my segment. I said, okay. Okay, take me off.
Wow.
So
Okay.
the live was there. He was there for the live, but for the which was a remote interview. But whenever the actual thing got posted, I only posted my Sevilla side, who was on the show before him, and not his segment because I used to do two guests,
Okay.
but it went on a little too long.
That's why there's not a second guest here, is because I refuse to work with anybody else. I'm such a diva. But on those lines, like, you know, the story of Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith in Men in Black.
Yeah.
When they started, like, Tommy Lee Jones acted like he looked down on Will Smith, like he was a rookie, even when they weren't on camera. Somewhat, if you listen to interviews now, like, Will Smith,
He didn't like him.
right, he did,
Yeah.
until they were supposed to. And then he's like, and then he actually, I think, what was it, they went out to dinner or something, and they like made that camaraderie. And it was all because he knew in order to get this right chemistry, this is going to help.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's stories where that kind of thing can be true, where the way you act off camera, because you bring those emotions in. Like, one of the Chubbuck technique things is, you know, if we're in a scene together and I'm supposed to feel certain ways about you, I can use substitutes from my real life where I, you know, kind of like, you know, can bring in my mom or my dad or my best friend or my ex-wife or whatever it is that needs to help me have some more real feelings behind it. And you can use that too. So that's another kind of trick to get there.
That's great. That's great advice. Now, actually, one more thing I do want to bring up because you're wearing your necklace and everything from Calvin. You did a really great job at that as well too, as Cobra. And you know, I know that Calvin didn't watch certain areas because of too personal to him. And even in the hospital, it's like that brought tears in my eyes. I remember sitting in the back and holding, and he was walking back. He goes, "It's just too hard to watch."
Okay, first off, I am still not convinced that those aren't true stories. I mean, he always is like, yeah, when I was actually getting my hand chopped by a hammer or hit by a hammer, I'm like, Calvin, why was your hand hit by broken by a hammer?
Yeah, he's like, oh, this whole hand was shattered. And he's like, wait, those aren't true though.
Hey, yeah. So, but that's it. Like, you've got to believe. If you believe it in the moment, the people watching will believe it. If you don't believe it, people watching won't believe it. Mm-hmm. When you see bad acting, you watch a show like, those are bad actors. Well, it's because they are acting. They're trying to show you the emotion. Mm-hmm. You know, if I'm trying to show you that I'm sad, you're gonna be like, that guy's not sad.
Yeah.
But if I'm not trying to show you that I'm sad, but I am sad, you're gonna see that I'm sad. Mm-hmm. You know, like, just be real.
I used to have somebody that, you know, I would watch audition tapes and then they would tell me, I can't do any of these around you because you make me nervous. I'm like, how do I make you nervous? I'm just trying to help you get the role. You know, if I'm giving advice, it's, you know, hey, this is, you know, something that I would do. You know, because what they would do is they would put on a character, mm-hmm. and you could tell that character was fake because they put on a voice and it sounded superficial. It looked superficial, and I was like, just act yourself like you would normally, mm-hmm. but in those shoes. And they were like, I can't do this around you. But somebody else was around them who gave horrible criticism and basically told them they sucked. They wanted them around them for the audition. I'm like, why? Why would you want somebody who's negative around you, but somebody who's actually trying to help you? You don't want me around. It was just, you know, but again, like you said, you know, they put on the superficial face because I don't think they quite understood or clicked that, hey, this has got to be me.
Or if you are feeling something, use it. Like, maybe when you're doing like your scene prep, you did all this work and it made sense for that time because you were in this one area of life, right? Mm-hmm. With certain things going on personally or whatever. But then the day you're filming, that situation resolved. You no longer have that. You don't feel those anymore. Or maybe you had a bad day. You just almost got in a car wreck on the way in. Well, use it. I mean, in that scene, you know, maybe you didn't just get in a car wreck, but those emotions of that adrenaline could be a situation that happened and what's going on. So when they say just to use it, like, don't try to, if you are feeling something, whether you're feeling that because you are feeling it as a character, or because your real life has caused such overwhelming emotions, use it.
You know, what's interesting is I actually went down to San Antonio and I did a what is it called? It's where you a monologue contest.
Mhm.
I was down in San Antonio. I was at an event. And they had monologue contest, so I competed in it. I had a monologue prepared, but at that time I was actually kind of going through some chaos in my life. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this because I can't project those kind of emotions right now. So I switched to a dramatic one and basically improv my whole monologue. And I still got second.
Wow.
And so I see what you mean by, what circumstances that you're going through at the time. I was able to pull out a lot of those really heavy emotions. I even had like the crowd reacting, saying, "You tell her," stuff like that, People were like responding to it. And I was like, and other people were like, honestly, you should have won that.
Nice.
But it was kind of a little bit of a popularity kind of thing, kind of catering to somebody. But other than that, I mean, people had told me, you definitely should have had that one right there in the bag, just because everybody's reacting to it. But they did have somebody who was there a little bit more training, and so it put on a really good monologue too, which I enjoyed it as well. But I was like, that was just how I felt at the moment. There was some chaos going on, and there was a lot of hurt and pain, and I just was able to just pull it out and put it out there, and then afterwards, I walked off with a smile. I was like, okay, yeah, turn it off now.
I think that's like when you're doing, sorry, allergies are terrible in Texas right now. When you're doing you're doing a bunch of self tapes, and let's say you've done it five takes. You're trying to figure out which one or which couple to send in. Well, which one is the one where you felt the most real emotion when you were doing it? That's probably the best. And if you're watching it, or better yet, you're having somebody else watch it, if they feel something, that's what you want. You're one of the ones where you're getting. I mean, I did a live like showcase, right, where we did monologues in front of some casting directors, and there was one where I was hoping I would actually cry, but I didn't. I didn't. But when we said, or when it was over, the person watching it, she was crying, and I'm like, okay. So I got an actual response out of and that's what you're trying to do, is to get responses from the audience. There was one time I did, of all things, it was a audition monologue, and I chose something from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there's a point where it's kind of like trying to rouse people to come fight, right? And it would not have surprised me if some of the people who were, I was like, there was a 6, 7 people. I swear some of them almost stood up when I was like, all right, let's go. I'm like, okay, I got something from you there. Like, that's if you can get people to almost involuntarily react, that's when you know you're doing your job as an actor. And it's not all the time. I mean, you're not always on. And that's why, I love when you have the opportunity to take multiple takes when you're filming. Because sometimes you don't. It's like, we're on a schedule, you got two chances go, and you're like, well, now I'm ready for the good take, and now I'm going to look like I wasn't prepared. Like, it happens.
Yeah. And so I do like that. I do think that's where kind of staying in character kind of helped me a little bit more, because we were able to do a lot of my scenes in just one take.
Mhm.
The times that we had to do multiple takes was because my scene partner
Always blame the same partner.
had a little bit of issues, and he was like, wait, how are you able to do that? I'm like, just, being me. At the time, I was like, and so he was actually asking me for advice a little bit. And so I kind of was like, here, try it this way. And so we did it like that, and it turned out to be a really good scene after a while. So I was like, that's kind of cool that, that they saw how I was in the scene, and then they were kind of asking me, like, like I had been doing it longer than them. They had actually been doing it longer than I have. And I was like, that just kind of felt pretty good. But at the same time, I was like, don't lose focus.
Right. Like, you've got to have that playing off each other. And there's one local actor I love doing scenes with, because she will always give something different, which then if I'm responding to that, I will have to give something different back. And every take is different, because you're coming at it with a different motivation, a different whatever. Which is why, like, when a director says, like, let's give me something different, instead of thinking, and you've had that before in an audition, I'm like, hey, I want another take, just something different. Like, what do I do? What do I do? Well, instead of being like, okay, for this take I'm going to be angry, or for this take I'm going to do whatever, simply change your goal. Like if my goal, if my one of the funnest examples, the scene from Ocean's 11, beginning of it when he goes in, when Johnny Ocean, what's his first name? Danny. When Danny Ocean goes in and he sits down next to Julia Roberts, Tess, and he sits down and he has a conversation. Now his goal is pretty obviously to win her back. And you do the opening scene that way. Well, we did an exercise where Kirk was like, okay, instead of your goal being to win her back, this time, same lines, everything's the same, but this time you already have another girlfriend. You don't want to win her back. Do the scene. Totally different. Like the lines are the same. The lines are basically saying, I want you to run away with me. We're still there. But they meant something different to me, which means they got a different response from her. And so you can do something different by literally just changing your emotional circumstances.
That's awesome. Yes.
So, lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah. This has actually been a very good, helpful, very intuitive. So actually pretty good. It's what I kind of aim for a little bit more too. Is I do like having, because it's more or less to help people, one, promote themselves as actors as well, but also new actors and upcoming people who are curious about it, that are just kind of nervous. They don't know where to start or what to do, and so they think that there's all sorts of requirements that are required to be an actor, but the reality is just simple.
So I think, and a lot of times there is you do need to have certain techniques, skills, etc. Things you do, like before doing an audition, and they laugh at me when they see me do it, but like not when I'm filming, but friends or whoever's watching, I'll do like like it seems ridiculous. I mean, getting all those muscles used to moving.
Yeah.
And you do stuff like that to help kind of get ready, right? And to take yourself out of normal to go. But you're right. To be an actor, you just need to be yourself. But if you're a new actor, everyone's like, how do I get an agent? Do I need an agent? How do I get a manager? Do I need a manager? What about headshots? What about reels? Quick answer, look up Act Like It's a Business, episode 1, listen to it, all answered. But other quick answer is you need a headshot. That's your calling card. And headshots usually are going to cost you a couple $100, but that is the first thing a casting director will look at. They will look at that headshot and see, like, before they look at your reel, that's what they see. So you've got to somehow show personality, show something that makes you different, but not in just a silly way or an I'm trying to be different, but like, look up headshots where you're like, there's some emotion I'm getting from that. Okay. So spend the money to get a good headshot, make it 8x10, get the right lighting, get the right everything. Take time to get on a set to learn. Now you may not be able to get on set as an actor, but get on set as a background actor or a PA or whatever you can, just to learn how sets work. And then for making a reel, it's kind of a catch-22. You need a reel to get an agent. You need an agent to get parts to get a reel. Make your own. Find a buddy. You've got an iPhone. You've got some lighting. Go and make a scene that is real. Record it. That's your first reel you submit to agents. The first thing I submitted to an agent included video from the audience of me doing improv comedy. Like, yeah, I don't put that now. But I kind of told them, hey, here's what I do. Here's the experience, how I've tried to get experience as background, as PA. I understand how sets work. And they're like, okay, let's do an interview. So they had the headshot, I had a rudimentary reel, and I had somebody who was trying to learn about how the whole industry worked. And most agents too will tell you, one, you've got to take classes before most agents will look at you. And a lot of them require classes while if you're not on set, you're still taking weekly classes. When you're on set, you don't have time. When you're off set, you're still taking class. You got to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Or they might be like, what are you doing? So those are, you've got to make that happen. And in today's world, the other thing I keep hearing is don't wait for a big role to find you. Don't wait to get on a Taylor Sheridan show or be flown to Hollywood. You're never going to be found if you're waiting. Make your own stuff. get involved with local projects, make your own stuff, and then that's how you move on this world.
And that's actually how I've been doing it too. I started off on background of lawn and bathrooms, and that was I actually turned that down for like a whole week because I had some people, saying they needed this background and stuff like that. I was like, no, it's okay. I'm working in roofing. I'm okay. I don't want to do it. And after about a week of basically somebody saying, hey, I really want to do this, but I don't want to do it alone. I'm like, yeah, if my new friends are going to be there, they're going to be there. Go ahead and do it. They're like, no, I really don't want to do this alone. So after a while, I was like, fine, I'll go ahead and do it. So then I got on there. I got booked for 2 days. Then I got booked for 2 more days, and then I got booked for 2 more days again.
Yeah.
And
you learned while you were there. You were paying attention. You were like seeing what the professional career actors were doing. Like if you're going to be a background, don't just spend the time scrolling your cell phone and being in your own world. Actually learn the lingo, learn what's happening, watch the crew. And if you can be on a crew, like if you can be a PA or if you can be a grip or even second AC and watch what's happening and learn on the set, you can see like being an AC helped me learn what the camera's seeing. So now I know, okay, they switched that lens and this is what the frame is. So this is my close up, and those things help so much. So use it all as learning. And if someone tells you, we want to be your agent or your manager, all you've got to do is pay $500, $1,000 to sign up with us. No, that's actually anybody who is a professional in this business, like the professional agents, they will get a commission when they get you a job. They don't take money first.
I'm glad that you brought that up too, because that was actually be something that came up because there's some people that they charge $500 to represent you, but I felt like it was more of a sales for the management side because they do manager as well, which is what I think that they were trying to sell. But I was like, I don't feel like I should pay. I think that it's more of a commission based job,
Even management should be commission based. Yeah.
And so I was like, if I'm getting my jobs myself, because they wanted me to report my jobs to them, so that way I could get paid out of what I was getting. And I was like, no, you didn't work for that. you get me a job, you get paid. If I get myself a job, I get paid.
It's almost like how sales work.
Exactly.
that's kind of what it is.
I'm a product, right? You're going for my look and what skills and training that I keep doing. You're selling me to the production. Now I'm doing the rest of it by doing the audition.
Mm-hmm.
So why should I pay you for not doing anything?
Yep.
And so that was my view. And so I didn't join that agency particularly. I do have an invitation to submit for another agency, which is basically, hey, my agent fees are 25% of the jobs I get you. What you get yourself, that's you. But let me know, so I'm not trying to book you for the same show. Or if you go on to something background, don't do background. Let me.
25% is pretty high. Most, you can look it up, but you'll see, especially SAG projects, usually 10% is there, and it can be more for non. But 25 is a pretty high number. So you might be able, if they're watching right now, sorry, but you might be able to also kind of have some wiggle room in negotiation with these things too. Okay. Just because they're presenting you with terms doesn't mean that's what you have to accept. Because you're still you do what makes sense for you. Now, if someone's if they're going to charge 25%, but they're probably going to get you in front of, being the next Marvel superhero, well, that's an exposure level that's probably worth it.
Yeah.
But taking 25% of a job that pays $300 for the day, that's a huge chunk that you need. I mean, of course, 25% of $1 million is also a huge chunk, but it's it's a different level of what they're getting you and the exposure and everything.
The way that they explained it, it seems like the 25% would be the front, and then the part that was paid was all mine. So they had agent fees at the front or something like that. I don't fully remember.
So when you're looking on audition, and a lot of times it might say this is going to pay 1,000 plus 20% or 800 plus 15%, whatever. So some casting agents will put out those things to try to get more people submitted from casting, right? Yeah. And so what that is that percent is what the casting is basically paying to the agent, but the agent is still going to take a percent of the part that you make. which is usually going to be 10, 15, or 20, depending on which agreement you have. So, yes, like that plus part as an actor, you just ignore it on the casting. And you know, if I get this part, I'm getting $1,500, and they're giving my agent some more because that's what they decided. But of that 1,500, I'm giving a percentage of it to my agent because that's the contract I have with them. That's how that kind of works. So yeah.
That's okay. That's great advice. I appreciate that.
If you have any questions of those kind of things, like reach out, and anybody watching, like you can reach out to actors and people in the industry, but also there's nothing wrong with, like, I've done things where I'm curious about, does this even make sense? And I'll email Sally Allen because I took that class with her and be like, hey Sally, help me out here. Is this up and up, or is there something I should worry about? And she will, you know, it might take her 2 minutes, but of time a day later, but she'll respond. And use your resources to be safe, because look, surround yourself with people who, there's some people who are cutthroat and don't want to help others. There are some people who are, let's all get there together. That's what you want, right? I mean, and you've had some cool people on the show who are, I mean, Kelly and Carla are gems of humans. If you're watching, you guys are awesome. Love you. They care about, I mean, I've gone to Kelly's house before to do an audition tape where he helps me make the tape.
Yeah.
And then he's got the same audition, and now I'm his reader helping him and giving him feedback. So we're literally helping each other compete for the same role, but it's because we're trying to, yeah, help each other, right? Like that's, you can do that.
They brought up the same point too.
Did they?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the whole thing yet. I'm sorry, guys. I only watched the first like 30 minutes, but I'll get to it.
It is a long podcast. It's a long
You talk too long, all right?
Yeah, that is a great point. Like I said, they did bring that up as well. And one person that ends up been a great resource for me that's helped me out a lot was actually Ron.
Yeah. Okay.
And so she's been very helpful to me. So a lot of times whenever I come across something, I'm like, hey, do you think this is legitimate? Should message me back right away. No.
So Facebook, but if you're looking into calling this, we all are trying to get jobs. We're all looking at Facebook for posts, right?
Yeah.
First off, if someone doesn't post the information, like if they don't post that it's paid, it's not, skip it, unless you're going to, like, I have done projects that aren't paid because I knew I'm going to get really cool footage.
Yeah.
And you're like, so that can be payment. Your footage can be worth it for some of these things. But in general, if you see a casting call and it's from a profile where you view the profile and you see nothing but reposts of other social media things, it's probably going to be a scam. If the email address is a name with numbers after it and that name does not match the name of the profile, it's probably going to be a scam. There's a lot of these kind of telltale signs. If they talk about honorarium, it's probably going to be a scam. I've made posts about these before and I'll continue to do so, but there's so many scams out there. And just be careful who you give your info to, and be careful what they're asking you to do. When there's stories of people being flown to overseas to, India, Thailand, whatever, and then being stringed on of like, okay, we're going to push back, go ahead and spend this money and we'll reimburse you. We're going to push back production for a week, we got you covered. And then people find out that they're just stringing them along to get their friends in a hotel and car business. And it's a scam. Yeah, there's all sorts of scams out there. You just be smart, be safe.
Yeah, I had somebody that was like, they were being told that they were going to be taken out to India. They were going to, be the main character. And before they even got out, everything seemed to keep falling back further and further. And then it went from being a drama to a comedy to a horror. I'm like, how many times is this thing going to switch genres? Like, it's not just, a mix of genres. It's switching entire genres altogether. And it's like, that just sounds like a red flag to me. And, of course you don't believe me, but I was like, it sounds like a real big red flag. I think they were just too excited over being, hey, I'm going to be the main character,
And that's what a lot of folks prey on, the idea that actors are hungry or crew is hungry, and they will use that against you. So yeah, just being smart and safe I can't emphasize it enough. Like there are some bad things that happen. Don't let it happen to you.
And that's a great thing to end on that. I really appreciate you coming in, Brian.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure having you on.
It's been great.
Pleasure working with you as well, too. So look forward to working with you again. on set another time, all right?
I mean, you've recruited me several times for different things now. Recruited me on camera and in person, right? So, yeah.
I've actually done a little DP work actually pretty recently too.
Yeah, nice.
So
see, always be nice to people because you never know what they're going to be doing. You know, like next thing you know, he's going to say, "I've decided to write and produce my own movie." So, you know,
I actually got a comedy skit I'm writing. So,
well, good thing I'm a funny guy.
it is a good thing.
Do you know the difference in a dad joke and a bad joke?
What?
It's obvious. The punchline's apparent.
That's great. Thanks everybody for watching. It's little dogs, Brian Spellman, get the Matson. Till we meet again, you have a great one. And thanks to Benita Murillo, Benita De Leon for all of your comments. I apologize, I didn't have a person here to put them all on there, but not very many were questions. Remember, you guys can ask questions to the guests. That's why I put in the ad. It's an interactive episode, so feel free to comment in, okay? But you guys take care, have a good one, and I will see you guys again later, all right?
All right, back to one.
Fuiste mal con mi corazón.